About a year ago, I made a video talking about the fact that Moegi had wood release, and it was a video where I really kind of went off on it. And now that I've had time to sit back and think things over and digest the news, I wanted to revisit the topic, and in particular, I paid very close attention to the very few instances that we've actually seen Moegi in the Boruto anime. And so I want to just go and say right now, I still think that Moegi having wood release is a really bad idea. Like, it is a terrible idea. However, I want to go into detail about why I think this isn't the best route to take, and why I personally think the wood release shouldn't have been something that went past Hashirama Senju, especially when you look at how broken wood release is. Now, despite the fact that we've seen a handful of people besides Hashirama use the jutsu, it's still a nature release that's freaking overpowered. At first, when it was introduced as a jutsu specifically meant for the first Hokage, where he combined earth and water release, but then it went to Yamato. Now, back in the day before the Orochimaru connection was revealed, this led to all kinds of theories on forums that he was a descendant of Hashirama. But as the Naruto series went on, we saw Danzo and Obito and Zetsu, even the Ten Tails, Ashura, Madara, and even Orochimaru joined the ranks of people who can use wood style freely. The fact that people kept trying to replicate Hashirama's wood style is what helped make him such a badass, in my opinion, because he had something that he developed naturally that it took people decades in order to replicate. And I think that that's something that's really, really cool. Wood release is basically the user converting their own chakra into a life source, creating trees and vegetation. The very forest that surrounds Konoha was created by the first Hokage, as stated by Masashi Kishimoto in Naruto Databook 2. And I just want to say this, right? Because there are over 30 wood release jutsu that have been created, I personally thought that it should have been something that remained as a relic in the era that the first Hokage grew up in, because of how insane things were back then, and due to the fact that Hashirama had to develop something like this in order to evolve and survive the battlefield. At least that's how I like to look at it. It's what made his character so special, and now that it's been spread around to so many different people, I really feel like it's lost its value. And to use another car example for you guys to kind of share my passion with cars, you know, when Dodge brought back the Dodge Demon, I believe a couple of years ago, when you look at that, right? When you look at that, that was a car that was made for a very limited model run. Like, if you wanted a Demon, you had to buy it that year it was out. Otherwise, you weren't going to get the Dodge Demon. And it's the most powerful car that was produced by Dodge. And I mean, the Demon is outbeating some of these supercars in a straight line. So it's an absolute monster. And so that led to people like me having to go out and buy a Hellcat or a Hellcat Red Eye in order to get somewhat similar performance, but not getting quite the same thing. And because of that, because of how rare it is, it's actually appreciated in value. Whereas a Hellcat and a Hellcat Red Eye, because so many of them are being produced, they're actually losing their value. And so I look at wood release as a similar thing. My Hellcat, when I had it, it wasn't worth the same thing it was when I purchased it. And after it got totaled, it's not something that I got the full check for. So I just want to kind of point out to you guys, like, wood release started out as something special. Now is not so much special, but I will say this, right? I will say this, wood release is something that, when you look at Hashirama, it didn't fully take away from his legacy. Since having wood release doesn't mean that you can do everything that Hashirama could do. And I just want to kind of point out some of the things Hashirama could do with wood release. And in theory, the people who have wood release can do these things to a smaller level, as shown with Yamato, but still, this should give you greater appreciation for the first Hokage. Wood release also allows the user to manipulate, absorb, and suppress chakra. Using wood release is how Hashirama was able to keep the tailed beasts, who were once deemed as being chakra monsters, confined via wood release like they were simple house pets. The chakra suppression basically takes control of the user's chakra until they don't have enough strength to fight back. And like I said before, don't get me wrong, Hashirama's legacy is still in fact, since having wood release doesn't mean you can absolutely automatically hold down a Biju, as shown with Yamato, who had to rely on the first Hokage's necklace in order to keep Naruto in check. Despite the many attempts to replicate Hashirama's wood release, it hasn't been 100% successful, with Mamoru Uchiha being the one who came the closest to being able to replicate it. For Moegi to have something like this with no explanation, it's not something I think is a good idea. And also, if we go by Naruto Data Book 4, there's also a chance that that Hashirama's regeneration ability could very well be linked to his wood release jutsu. Once again, that kind of builds on what I said. Moegi having this with no explanation is really poor writing, and it isn't the best storytelling method in my opinion. Sure, it's no different than when Yamato came out of nowhere and was able to use wood release, but there has to be something to pay off here. She's too young to have been an experiment by Orochimaru, and I highly doubt that Konoha's been continuing experiments on wood release, especially since it was deemed as being something that was forbidden by the third Hokage. And now I know that Tsunade created a arm for Naruto using the Zetsu and Hashirama cells, but outside of that, I don't think it's something that's been continued. Now, this obviously means that in order for Moegi to have it, she has to have gotten the Kekkei Genkai genetically. That's the most likely answer. But who are her parents? Is she a distant relative of Hashirama? It's something that needs to be addressed at some point in the story, but I want to know from you guys, do you think it's a good idea that Moegi has wood release? And do you think that the anime does need to give us some type of filler explaining why she has it? But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.